We're back with Season 9, Episode 26, The Last Problem. This is the last episode of the show. If I need to explain to you what it is, then you're in the wrong place. This is a very dense episode. So let's just start from the beginning. Immediate visual storytelling. We see only a few seconds of a shot of a Canterlot that is much larger than it used to be. Very expanded. It's growing out across the mountainside. Then we have a quick pan of the city and one of everything. Just one of every race there, all over the place. And then Spike walks in and is clearly much more grown up. So the first shot gives us, time has passed. The second shot shows us where we are. But the third shot confirms this is now quite a bit in the future. Also, there's a statue of the main six in Canterlot, if you caught that. Elder Spike, who is the friendship ambassador, is apparently having to deal with the Abyssinians and the Diamond Dogs, which makes sense. And, of course, grown-up Twilight, whose mane is flowing, as it should. But then it turns out that they've got someone. And then a royal guard pokes in. Now, it's actually Gallus. But I wanted to point that out because it means multi-species military units, which is actually kind of extraordinarily important in a large-scale cultural setup. I don't want to get too much into it, but let's just say that there's a lot of historical precedents for people of mixed races or mixed nationalities working together in military, forging extremely tight bonds of those people, and it's led to a lot of actual real-life change, for the better, I would argue, in real-life history. Yeah, there's some examples of this. I'm just going to leave that at the door, but point is, there's a lot of logic to that. So, we see, oh god, what's her name? Luster Dawn, who's only named once. Before I go any further, there was a disagreement. I actually looked this one up because I was curious. There's a disagreement amongst the creative staff as to who Luster Dawn is. So the person who wrote this episode, which I do believe is Josh Haber, I could double check that out. Yep. Actually specifically wrote Luster Dawn to be the daughter of Starlight and Sunburst. However, the producer, Jim Miller, actually disagreed with that idea, and so did several other people in the writer's room, and said that the point of Luster Dawn was to be the audience surrogate. Make of that what you will. I'm just here to report it. A lot of stuff is left deliberately vague on purpose. There's actually been an extensive series of interviews about this, which I perused prior to doing this, just a few seconds ago, or minutes ago, I guess, at this point. And, yeah, they very, very deliberately left a lot of lines just kind of, or bricklaying. They do what I call bricklaying, and they let people just kind of come up with their own impressions and perspectives on them on purpose. As for me, I don't care, act. I have no preference or opinion one way or the other. So, you'd rather leave the school than make friends. Yeah, okay, book ending. They have fun with Spike's animation. I'm sure you caught that. Yawn, excuse me. But if friendships ultimately fade, why make them in the first place? Okay, nope, you're right. What? Cold open. Interesting little cold open. So, you notice there's a new mural. We've got the windows, the mural windows, which we've always had. There's a new one of them defeating the trio. The frenemies trio, and actually defeating them and sealing them away. I just wanted to comment on that really quick. There's actually a line they mention here. So we go to the past a little bit, and Twilight says, just because things change doesn't mean you leave everything you love behind. It's an interesting line I just want to comment on in the real-life historical context of the fact that I just mentioned that the previous two episodes are better than, direct example, All Good Things. Does that mean I love All Good Things less? So then we hit the newspaper article. I had to pause for this one a little bit because they go by this very quickly. There's actually a lot of stuff here. So the first thing that shows up is we see the wedding announcement for Big Mac and Sugar Belle with the pears and the apples on the left. How many of you even caught that one? And there's a bunch of stuff about the battle, obviously. Then there's the other wedding announcement between Lyra and Bon Bon, which, they're getting hitched. Cool. That's pretty sweet. It's also legible. Like most of the dialogue is nonsense dialogue, but you can actually clearly make out Lyra and Bon Bon there, so that was kind of cool. Muffin has finally moved on from the post office and is now making muffins. That's good. And of course, Yankee Doodle's here for some reason. So we're moving away and they're not. What if we all just drift apart? This is a very real, very actual problem in real life history. And I'm going to go and give my opinion on this, speaking as someone who used to travel and move multiple times a year. In my experience, the way this ends up working out, hell, the last time I moved was like 2 years ago. The way this ends up working out is keeping those ties and those connections and those friendships depends entirely on the relationship in question, how strong it is, how much of a friend you really are, how real of a friend you really are. I haven't seen Gary in person in 7 years. The last time I talked to him was yesterday. The last time I hung out with him was 2 days ago. Now, these days it is a lot easier to do than it used to be, ironically. Everyone always talks about, I'm always busy, but no, the tools we have at our disposal to remain connected are much better than we used to have. It used to be you would write a letter every now and again, and that would kind of be it. If you were lucky, you would make a phone call, but that cost extra because long-distance charging. So, nowadays, keeping connected is a joke. I just wanted to mention that in brief. But it is still relevant. It is still relevant because, after all, there are lots of people who I've been friends with who I do not stay in contact with and haven't. Not really on purpose, just because... shrug. So... this cuts through a little bit of a pseudo-montage. Applejack isn't worried at all. Change is natural. Pinky's like, I'm not worried at all. But I'm worried about the fireworks. Fluttershy's not worried at all. She's working on the coordination. And Rainbow's not worried at all. She's designing a very complex routine because Rarity, who is not worried at all, is just thinking about opening a boutique for non-ponies. Yeah, I'm sure you caught this as well. They actually own up to this later, but it's very obvious that what they're doing is it's called burying yourself in your work. There's even a line Fluttershy says, well, I can't think of a single negative or a single bad thing about it. I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. I do this too. I hide in my work plenty. Although, actually, I think I've mentioned before on this very show that one of my comfort things is just going and doing the dishes. So, then we have a brilliant visual of Twilight. She is sitting in the library, which is completely bare except for one comic book, alone, in front of a mural design thing, which looks a lot like the Tree of Friendship, in the dark, by herself, big empty room. Says all it needs to. It's there only for a second, but there's a lot of great visual storytelling in this episode. They crammed so much into this. And, so like, oh my god. And they all come in, hey, we're here to say goodbye. And Twilight, excuse me, finally says what's actually bothering her. Which, of course, leads to the obvious. Of course we, are bothered by us, and of course we're worried, and what if we don't want to see each other anymore? What if we don't talk as much? What if we don't stay friends? And they just all start sobbing. Because, of course they do. Duh, right? This is just telling what we already knew in the previous scenes. They are all just as bothered by this as they all are. This is a worrisome concept. Unfortunately, they spent so much time sitting here and sobbing that they were like, oh crap, we're late for the train. So they rush off. Starlight is there for a millisecond. And they teleport onto the train. Okay, cool. That's a good idea. Except none of them are now doing their various jobs for the coronation because they're all on the train. I wouldn't worry about it too much. It could always be worse. Damn you, sheep. Then we cut to a nice big shot of getting ready for the coronation. Naturally, Shining Armor is crying like he always does at these events. He always cries at these events. And then there's the spiders, which end up on the dress, which interrupt the animals, which leads to them being irritable because they didn't have the snacks. So the Wonderbuds do their thing, off time and off tempo, while the fireworks are going off, and all the drinks are applesauce. That's, it's a hell of a domino. That's a hell of a domino. Close enough. I love Luna's line. Close enough. So then we cut back to the present for a moment. Or the future, however you want to think of that. Different we see Pinkie Pie's hair has taken on a new life of its own. All of them have slightly different hairstyles, but Pinkie Pie's is the one that really actually caught me. I was just like, holy crap, Pinkie. With her daughter, Little Cheese. Yes, that is Cheese Sandwich. The two have ended up together. They have a child. Rarity, who has put a stylized streak in her hair, of course, because that's how you age gracefully. Obviously, you just think about it a little bit. All of them have the little lines underneath their eyes to show that they're older. And, of course, she's just been working with the Yaks, because, of course, she has. Rainbow and Applejack are now living together. This is one of those vague ones they decided to deliberately leave vague, but they left enough of it in to let you kind of infer whatever you want from that one. Fluttershy being left off by Discord. Now, Discord would have actually joined in, but he's off doing an Ogres and Oubliettes convention. And you might say, what, he's too busy to be here for this? But then you remember, and they actually mentioned this in just a moment, that this is a regular occurrence. This is just their everyday thing. So, you know, a convention would actually override that in several ways. So that makes sense. And then there's Starlight. Finally. Actually, this brings up an interesting concept from a producer, writer, and creator perspective. Let's say you're ending, I don't know, random example, a 9-year-old show. Who gets a starring slot in that episode? Yeah, Discord, you'll notice, had no lines of dialogue, and Starlight is actually reduced to having effectively like 5 lines of dialogue and only 2 cameos. The only ones who have significant presence in this one are the main 6 and Spike. Everyone else is effectively a cameo. Now, that's fine. I'm not complaining or arguing. It's just, as a creator, that's a decision you have to make. You decide who has a major role in your finale and who has a minor role. Because I'll tell you who has a minor role in this episode, literally everybody. The panning shots, hello? Like, I think that's quite literally everybody. But yeah, fiction often loves the idea of bookending for good or for ill. That's actually a debatable thing, not a necessarily good thing. And so they decided to bookend this by focusing on the main 6 plus Spike. So, it was an interesting decision to make. Book of Memories is given as a gift. Actual motion pictures probably individually enchanted. Cool idea, Harry Potter reference. And then we have to maintain our friendship. So I suggest we meet once a moon, once a month, I believe is what that means, as a council of friendship. Could be once a week, I'm not actually sure. Once every period of time that's longer than a day. Now, what's funny about this, I want to pause and talk about this for just a second. Because this is one of the single best ways to maintain friendship, in my opinion. It may seem rote, but having a regular, patterned interaction with someone is actually one of the better ways to maintain that connection with that person. You may call it off at some point or another, but, you know, because there's an Ogres and Oubliettes convention. But having those regular interactions is the kind of thing that allows you to keep being that person's friend. To learn as they learn and grow as they grow, and to keep having that connection, right? I mean, I go over to my sister's house every Monday to help out with yard work in the house and to take care of the kiddo. And every Tuesday night, I hang out with Gary and Pax and Dawn. Every Wednesday night, I hang out with Gary and Pax. Every Thursday night, I have my D&D night with Third and Guido and Cadiz. Every Friday night is another Gary, Pax, and Dawn night, and Saturday nights are free, and Sunday nights is when I do my Star Trek rewrite stuff with Lore Reloaded. So, if it's a year, I think that's a little bit too much. Honestly, I would say a week is probably something, a week-ish. 8 days, something like that. That would make more sense to me, in general. But then again, we have no idea how their moons thing works, and who frickin' knows. So make your own answer there if you want to. Shrug. Either way, I'm going to just headcanon. Hang on, let me rewrite reality. There, okay. They get together every week. Cool, we're cool. All right. This then leads to, you know, them talking about, hey, we're going to Silver Shoals. You remember that place? The good retirement place? I'm sure they enjoy that. I wonder if they'll actually grow old at this point, since, you know, they've kind of vacated their roles, but not necessarily their magic. I don't know, there's some world-building question marks left there. And then they hit the last song. The Magic of Friendship Grows is the name of it. And I just was jotting down thoughts as we were going through this. Naturally, where else does she send Luster Dawn except to Ponyville, Harmony capital of the planet? We see Lyra and Bon Bon, who are together and have been for quite a while. Pound Cake and Pumpkin Cake are now taking care of the shop. Starlight and Sunburst are there at the school. Trixie is at the school helping out. All the Cutamar Crusaders are grown up, again, for real this time, and as teachers. We see Kieran in the students. We see the student 6 who are grown up and are still hanging out and friends. Big Mac and Sugar Bell are running the farm and have their kiddo. Oh, by the way, this is a good time. Oh, yeah, Gummy's huge. Sorry, thank you. Yeah, no kidding, Dream Whisper. Did you notice that, I'm sure you did, Applejack actually had the Granny Smith's scarf, and Granny Smith didn't have a presence, because of course she didn't. She's dead. But I don't mean that as a harsh thing. I mean it as an absolutely logical consequence. Of course she is. And of course Applejack would carry on the legacy, so to speak, thereof. Wait, did Applebloom have it? I'm not sure I agree with that sentence, but it doesn't matter. One of them had the scarf. Hang on. No, hang on. I actually don't believe you. So, hang on. I gotta mute this. Yeah. There we go. Don't want to be copy-wronged. Alright, hang on. So, we gotta go over here. Right there. Come on. Okay, so there's her. Now let's look up a picture. Granny Smith. MLP, Granny Smith. There we go. Huh. That is actually a different scarf. What do you know? It's barely a different scarf. Like, it is just barely a different scarf. The difference is the orange is a little bit lighter than Granny Smith's orange. No, it's not Goldie Delicious. I actually just looked that up too, because you mentioned that. And Goldie Delicious's scarf is pink and has no apples on it. And has a pendant. And some frills. And looks absolutely nothing like that scarf whatsoever. So, now we're going to skip forward to the students, which is going to be over here. Right here. There we go. Ah, yes, you're right. Applebloom. I didn't notice that. Applebloom does, in fact, have Goldie Delicious's scarf. So she's super dead, as she should be. So that makes sense. So that's one thing I didn't notice, was the Goldie Delicious scarf. Although the baby hippogriff is absolutely adorable looking. Older Acellus. Anyways, where the hell was I? Big Mac and Sugar Bowl taking her to the farm. The Yak Gowns. We see Yona and Sandbar are still together, whatever that ends up meaning. Another vagueness thing there. Discord regularly adding portals to the Sanctuary to help out with that, which makes a degree of sense. Yona is Yona-sized. And then there's a pan of just all the characters. Just all the characters. I don't even know how to summarize that. It's a little crazy, actually, how many characters go through here. Oh, I should probably mention one other thing. This is kind of tied into what Dream Whisperer mentioned, but we do see Discord in the future. Twice, actually. And in both times, he looks completely unchanged, because, you know, he's immortal. Just something random to leave out there, just while we're on the subject. Thanks, Patox. And then we have the final shot on the hill, which just... before I even talk about how that feels, did you notice, and I've got the shot right here, the actual final shot of the hill. It looks like it's a new picture. It's a new portrait that they drew. Right there. Because it actually has a long shot. It looks like multiple pictures combined, actually. We got a long shot of Ponyville with a tiny bit of candlelight in the background. We see Twilight's castle right over there, and over on the left side we see the farm and all that. And yeah, here we are. It's the show. Like, it's the central location of the show, all in one shot, which then leads to the final shot of them just standing on the thing. And then the book closed. And I don't know why, but it was the book closing that actually hit me. Of all of this, of all these emotional moments, and all this brilliant choreography and cinematography and visuals and music and all that, what actually got to me, what just kind of broke the dam, was the freaking book closing. I know that we talk about bookends as a concept, but that is a hell of a bookend right there. Yeah, it's a brilliant callback. For those of you, on the off chance there's one person in the audience who doesn't know this, I actually double-checked this just to make sure my memory wasn't playing tricks on me. The very first episode opens on nearly an identical shot. The only thing that's different is the book looks a little bit less worn. And, yeah, and then there it is, and I don't know what else to add to that. I'm actually double-checking it again. I don't know why, because I know what I'm talking about. No, don't have audio, don't have audio, don't have audio. And yeah, it's the story over. Nope, I'm wrong. I'm wrong. It's actually not that much more worn. It's still worn. But the background's a little bit less detailed, though. And that's it. That's My Little Pony. Months from now, probably, Imperial Star Destroyer. But it'll happen. It'll happen. They do mention that they had done a couple of things off camera in the interim. And I like to think that they did have that. Let's ignore the emotions for just a second. Let's talk about literature and show production. There's several ways you can end a show. And a long form series is actually what it is. A book series, movie series, game series, whatever. There's a lot of ways you can end and terminate. But generally speaking, there are three most commonly accepted ones. Now, I'm not going to mention the third one because, frankly, it isn't relevant to this. So the first two are A, you end it definitively in a way that very much closes the book on the chapter, so to speak. Now, you might think, oh, that's what this one did. No, not at all, actually. A very definitive ending would be closer to something like, I suppose, I'm actually having trouble thinking up one all of a sudden. I suppose Lord of the Rings might be a thing. Yeah, Deep Space Nine is closer to that. But, you know, okay, World of Warcraft Legion is actually probably the best example of this I can think of, where it's just Chakong, no really, it has terminated and concluded, the end. Now, there might be other stories, but those are other stories. And that's the relevant point. You know, Deep Space Nine's story ended. Cisco's story ended. You know, yeah, a lot of JRPGs do this too. Final Fantasy IV, you know, the stories in Witcher 3 ends in this manner. But there's another type of ending, and that's the ending that this one does. The other type of ending is, and then the adventure continues. TNG actually ended that way if you were paying attention, and that's specifically why I wanted to bring up the DS9 comparison. Because DS9 ended the end, TNG ended, and then it continues. And this is very much a and then it continues kind of ending. And as weird as this may sound, I think that actually works better for MLP than the other type of ending would have. Yeah, the torch is handed off, they're still interacting, they still have their own little adventures, there's always some stuff going on in the background. The story continues, it's just we have left it, right? And I think that's a very satisfying way to end a show. After all, there's always the risk, bringing real life into this for a moment, of something overstaying its welcome and becoming TOS Season 3. Or actually TOS Season 4, to be more accurate. So, yeah, that works extraordinarily well. The construction and design of this show, as ever, continues to be higher tier than it really has any right to be. Wait, Simpsons had an ending? Do you think this episode was needed after the last episode? No. Do I think this episode adds after the last episode? Yes. I do think this is a positive. Which, of course, leads me to rating. And I know this is going to come as an extraordinary shock for an episode that literally brought me to tears, but I am going to go ahead and give this a purple. Purple, 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 right at the end. Now, I'm not going to answer yet, Dream Whisperer, but hold on to the question. Don't forget about it, okay? Do me a favor. I need to do a couple of things. That's just paperwork. I'm burying myself in my work, so I don't think about it. We'll put it right here. So, yeah. Yeah, by the way, sorry, this is just a little bit of historical context. I literally just finished out the finale for Shadowbringers last night. I stayed up late just to make sure an extra hour and a half of streaming. Actually, more like an hour and 40 minutes. And that's a hell of an emotional roller coaster ride. I still, actually, as of this moment, haven't sat down and done my due diligence in figuring out just how many positives I'm going to shotgun at that ending. So I just wanted to mention that because going straight from the finale of Shadowbringers, which in many ways is the ending of Final Fantasy XIV, straight into this, it's a thing. But yes, one last stream. Now here's what I'm going to do.